The thing about working search and rescue in northern Alaska isn't the cold. Everyone expects the cold. They imagine it like a wall, something you brace against, something that hurts until you get used to it. But that's not how it works. The cold isn't a wall. It's a presence. It seeps into everything slowly, patiently, until it isn't something you're fighting anymore. It's something you're sharing space with, something that's waiting. What people don't expect is the silence. Not the kind of silence you get in a quiet room. Not the absence of sound. I mean the kind that feels like it's listening back. The kind that stretches for miles in every direction, uninterrupted, untouched, like the world just stops out there. No roads, no lights, no proof that anything exists beyond what your headlamp can reach. You learn to function in it. You have to. You stop thinking about how far away help is. You stop wondering what's beyond the horizon. You focus on the job. Missing hikers, broken snowmobiles, the occasional hunter who pushes too far and pays for it. Most cases are simple, at least in the way simple means predictable. Exposure, bad decisions, bad luck. You follow tracks, you read the terrain, you find the person or you find what's left. But every now and then, you get something that doesn't fit. I've been doing this for 6 years, long enough to know patterns, long enough to trust instincts I can't always explain, and long enough to understand that when something feels wrong out here, it usually is. The call came in at 2:11 a.m. Dispatch didn't sound panicked, which was normal. Panic gets people killed out here. The calmer you sound, the better your odds. But there was something off in her voice. Not fear exactly, hesitation, like she was choosing her words carefully. Unit 12, we've got a missing person. Last seen near marker 47. I was already moving, pulling on my outer layer, grabbing my gloves. How long missing? A pause. Too long. Approximately 3 hours. 3 hours in that temperature might as well have been a death sentence. Who reported it? Another pause. No one. I stopped. What do you mean, no one reported it? Silence crackled over the radio. Then, we received coordinates, no caller ID. That didn't make sense. People don't just anonymously report missing kids in the middle of nowhere. Not out here. Out here, you know exactly who's missing, because it's usually someone you know. Any description? I asked. Female. Estimated age 8 to 10. Red parka. That was it. No name, no family, no vehicle left behind, nothing. I should have questioned it more. I should have waited for confirmation, for backup, for anything that made it make sense. Instead, I said I'm en route, because that's the job. You don't wait when there's a chance someone's still alive. The engine of my snowmobile roared to life, cutting through the stillness. The beam of my headlamp carved a narrow path into the dark as I pushed out past the station boundary, into open tundra. The temperature sat somewhere around -30, maybe lower with wind chill. The kind of cold that turns exposed skin numb in minutes, the kind that makes your breath freeze in the air and fall like dust. Marker 47 was about 8 miles out. Flat terrain mostly. A few ice ridges, nothing too difficult. I'd made that run dozens of times. But that night, something felt off. At first, I chalked it up to the call, the lack of details, the way dispatch had hesitated. Your brain fills in gaps when it doesn't have enough information. It creates problems where there aren't any. That's what I told myself. About halfway there, my radio clicked. Not a transmission, just a sharp, clean click. Like someone pressing a button and letting go. I frowned, tapping the side of the unit. Dispatch, your copy? Static. Dispatch. Nothing. The signal out here could be unreliable, but it didn't just stop. Not completely. Not like that. I kept moving. The tundra stretched endlessly around me, illuminated only by my headlamp and the faint shimmer of the aurora above. Green light rippled across the sky in slow, silent waves. Beautiful in a distant kind of way. And completely useless. At mile 6 I saw the tracks. Small, narrow, definitely not mine. They cut across my path at an angle, heading northeast. I slowed, angling the snowmobile to follow them. They were fresh. No wind distortion, no snow buildup. Whoever made them hadn't been out here long. Dispatch, I tried again. I've got tracks. Confirming visual. The radio stayed dead. I killed the engine. The silence hit immediately. No wind, no distant hum, nothing. Just that vast, listening quiet. I swung off the snowmobile, boots crunching softly against the snow. The tracks continued ahead, steady and evenly spaced. Not running, not stumbling, walking. That was the first thing that didn't sit right. An 8-year-old alone, in sub-zero temperatures, doesn't walk calmly into open tundra. They panic. They circle. These tracks didn't do any of that. They went straight. I followed them on foot, keeping my light low, scanning the horizon. "Hello?" I called out. "Search and rescue. If you can hear me, respond." My voice carried farther than I expected, swallowed slowly by the distance. No answer. I kept moving. The tracks led over a small rise, then dipped into a shallow basin where the wind had carved the snow into smooth, glassy shapes. And that's where I saw her. She was sitting in the center of the basin, exactly where the tracks ended. Red parka, hood up, small frame. Perfectly still. Relief hit first, sharp and immediate. "Hey," I called, picking up my pace. "You okay?" No response. I got closer, my boots crunching louder now, my breath coming faster. "Hey, it's all right," I said, softer this time. "I'm here to help." She didn't move. Didn't even turn her head. I stopped a few feet away. Something about the way she was sitting felt wrong. Too straight. Too composed. "Can you tell me your name?" I asked. Slowly, very slowly, she tilted her head upward. But she didn't look at me. She looked past me, into the darkness behind my shoulder. And then she said, in a voice that was calm and clear and completely out of place, "You're not supposed to be here yet." A cold pressure settled in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she lifted one small gloved hand and pointed. Not at me, not at the snowmobile, but behind me. I turned, and for a moment I saw nothing, just empty tundra stretching into darkness. My headlamp flickered, just once, and in that single blink of light, something was standing out there. Tall, thin, too far away to see clearly, and yet unmistakably there. I froze. The light steadied again. Nothing. Empty. I swallowed, forcing myself to breathe. When I turned back to the girl, she was already standing. I hadn't heard her move. Up close, she looked normal. No visible injuries, no frostbite. Her breathing wasn't even labored. That wasn't possible. "You need to come with me," I said, reaching out a hand. "We need to get you warmed up." She looked at my hand, then back up at me. "They told me you'd say that," she replied. "Who did?" For the first time, she met my eyes. "They're keeping count," she said. The radio on my shoulder clicked. Loud. Sharp. And this time it didn't stop. The clicking didn't fade into static like a normal signal drop. It continued, steady and rhythmic, like someone tapping a finger against the inside of the radio casing. Not random. Not interference. Deliberate. I reached up slowly and turned the volume down. It didn't change anything. The sound wasn't coming through the speaker anymore. It was coming from inside the unit itself. The girl watched me, her expression calm, in a way that didn't belong on a child's face in the middle of the tundra at 3 a.m. "They know you heard it," she said. I forced a breath out through my nose, steadying myself. "All right, that's enough, we're leaving." I took her wrist gently, expecting resistance. There was none. Her hand was warm. Not just warmer than expected, actually warm. Like she'd just come in from indoors. That wasn't possible. I tightened my grip slightly without meaning to, and she tilted her head, watching me like she was studying something. "You're starting to notice," she said. "Notice what?" I snapped. She didn't answer. The clicking stopped. Not gradually, not fading. It just ended. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, like something had shifted. I didn't waste time. I guided her back toward the snowmobile, scanning the horizon as we moved. Every instinct I had was screaming now. The kind that doesn't come from training, but from something older, something harder to ignore. Halfway up the rise, I looked back. The basin was empty. No tracks, no indentation where she'd been sitting. Nothing. I stopped. "What's wrong?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. I just stared. My tracks were still there. Deep, clear impressions in the snow, leading down into the basin. Hers were gone. Completely. I turned slowly to look at her. "You walked out here," I said. "I followed your tracks." She smiled. Not wide, not exaggerated. Just enough to make something in my chest tighten. "Did you?" she asked. I felt the ground of the situation shift under me. This was wrong. All of it. The call, the coordinates, the girl, the tracks. But she was here. Physical. Tangible. I could feel her hand in mine. That meant something. It had to. "We're going," I said again, more firmly. This time I didn't look back. We reached the snowmobile, and I helped her up onto the back seat. She climbed on easily, settling in without needing instruction, like she'd done it before. "Hold on tight," I told her. She wrapped her arms around my waist. Her grip was gentle, too gentle. I started the engine, and the machine roared back to life, cutting through the silence like a blade. For a second, everything felt normal again, mechanical, predictable. I turned us back toward the station and opened the throttle. The tundra blurred past, the beam of my headlamp bouncing over uneven snow. I pushed faster than I should have, faster than was safe in those conditions. I needed distance. Behind us, the darkness felt thicker now. Not just absence of light, but something with weight, something that didn't want to be left behind. About 2 miles in, the radio clicked again. Once. Then silence. Then a voice. Not dispatch. Not anyone I recognized. Unit 12. It was distorted, stretched thin, like it was being pulled through something before reaching me. I slowed slightly, instinct overriding urgency. "Say again," I responded. Static filled the line. "Then you passed it." A cold spike ran through me. "Past what?" I asked. No answer. Just that low, empty hiss. I checked the GPS mounted to the dash. My stomach dropped. We were heading northeast. Marker 47 was southwest. I jerked the handlebars, bringing us to a sharp stop. That wasn't possible. I hadn't turned. I knew I hadn't. The terrain didn't even make sense for that kind of disorientation. It was flat, open. There were no landmarks to confuse direction, but also nothing to redirect it. And yet, the coordinates were clear. We were going the wrong way. Behind me, the girl spoke softly. "They don't like when you leave early." I turned slightly, enough to catch her in the edge of my vision. "What does that mean?" "You weren't supposed to take me yet." "Not until the time." "What time?" She didn't hesitate. 3:07. The radio crackled. The display flickered. 3:06 a.m. My grip tightened on the handlebars. "No," I muttered. I turned the snowmobile around, correcting course, pushing us back the way we'd come. The engine strained as I forced more speed out of it. The seconds felt louder now. Every vibration, every shift in the wind, every breath inside my mask. 3:07 hit. The engine died. Not sputtered, not stalled. It just cut out completely. We were thrown into silence again. This time, it felt absolute. Even the wind was gone. I tried the ignition. Nothing. Again, nothing. Behind me, the girl loosened her grip and slowly slid off the snowmobile. "You should stay with it," she said. I turned fully now, frustration cutting through the fear. "We are not splitting up. You're staying right here." She shook her head. They're already here. My pulse spiked. Who is they? I demanded. But I already knew the answer wasn't something I wanted. She stepped back, boots making no sound against the snow. I noticed that then. No crunch, no imprint, nothing. Hey, I said, stepping off the snowmobile, reaching for her again. Don't move. She didn't stop. She just watched me, that same calm expression, like she was waiting for me to understand something I didn't have context for. You still have time. You can fix it. Fix what? She raised her hand again and pointed. Not behind me this time, but to my left. I turned. At first, I saw nothing. Then my eyes adjusted. Shapes, darker than the dark around them. Tall, unnaturally thin, standing in a line across the tundra. Too still to be people. Too solid to be shadows. There were more than one, a lot more. My breath caught. They weren't moving closer. They weren't doing anything at all. Just standing, facing us, watching. How many? I started, but the words died. Because I realized something worse. They weren't spaced randomly. They were arranged, like markers, like a boundary. I looked back at the girl. She was farther away now. I hadn't seen her move. If you cross, she said, they count you. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it might shake something loose inside my chest. Count me for what? I asked. She tilted her head again. For later. The radio clicked. Once. Then a different voice came through. Clear. Familiar. Unit 12, this is dispatch. Do you copy? Relief hit so fast, it almost hurt. Dispatch. I grabbed the radio. I've got the girl, but something's wrong. My engine died. I stopped. The girl was gone. Just gone. No movement, no sound, no tracks, nothing. I spun in a full circle, heart racing. Where did she? Unit 12, dispatch repeated, sharper now. You need to respond. What is your status? I forced myself to focus. I had visual on the missing juvenile. But she's not here anymore. A pause. Then, what missing juvenile? The words hit harder than anything I'd seen so far. You called it in, I said. Red parka, approximately 8 years old, marker 47. Silence. Then, slow and careful. Unit 12. We have no active missing persons. My throat went dry. That's not possible, I said. You gave me the coordinates. No, she replied. We didn't. The wind came back all at once. A sudden, violent rush that howled across the tundra, kicking up snow and reducing visibility to almost nothing. I turned back toward the line of figures. They were closer. Not by much, but enough. And one of them was stepping forward. I didn't wait to see what happened next. Training overrides curiosity when survival is on the line. I grabbed the snowmobile again, yanking at the ignition, forcing it, like brute effort might bring it back to life. Nothing. Behind me the wind howled louder, but underneath it, faint, almost hidden, I could hear something else. Footsteps. Not crunching. Not quite. More like pressure. Like something heavy displacing the surface of the snow without breaking it. I turned slowly. The figures hadn't rushed me. They hadn't even changed pace. But the one that had stepped forward was closer now. Close enough that my headlamp began to catch it in fragments. It didn't reflect light. It absorbed it. The beam hit its shape and just stopped. Like the darkness there was thicker, denser, swallowing everything. I couldn't make out a face, but I knew exactly where it would have been, and I knew it was looking at me. My body locked for half a second too long. Then instinct snapped me out of it. I grabbed my emergency flare from the side compartment, struck it hard, and it burst to life in a violent red glow, hissing and spitting sparks into the frozen air. Light flooded the immediate area. The effect was instant. The figure stopped, not recoiled, not retreated, just stopped, like something had paused it. The others behind it remained still, lined across the tundra like stakes driven into the earth. I raised the flare higher, sweeping it slightly. Every time the light passed over them, they seemed to distort, not moving, but shifting in a way my eyes couldn't track properly. Like I was seeing different versions of the same shape, overlapping. "Dispatch," I said, forcing my voice steady. "I need immediate extraction. Vehicle failure, unknown hazards on site." No response. I checked the radio. Dead again. Of course it was. The flare burned hot in my hand. The only real thing in a situation that had completely slipped out of anything logical. The figure took another step. Closer. Slow. Measured. It wasn't chasing me. It wasn't hunting. It was approaching like it had all the time in the world. And somehow, that was worse. I backed up, keeping the flare between us, my boots finally crunching loudly against the snow again. That sound grounded me. Reality, however thin, still existed under my feet. Okay, think. Snowmobile dead. Radio unreliable. Unknown entities forming a perimeter. And the girl. The girl who had vanished like she'd never been there. "They count you." Her words echoed back, sharper now. I glanced to my left again. The line wasn't random. It curved, slightly. Encircling. Closing. Not fast, but deliberate. They were shaping something. A boundary, or a trap. I looked down at the snowmobile, then back at the approaching figure. Then beyond it. Darkness, open tundra. No landmarks, no safety. But one direction mattered more than the others. The direction they didn't want me to go. I turned 90 degrees and ran. Not full sprint, too risky in this terrain, but fast enough to put distance between me and whatever line they were forming. The flare cast wild shadows as I moved, the red light bouncing and twisting across the snow. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, the wind died again, completely, and the silence came back. But this time it wasn't empty. It was crowded. I felt it before I saw it. That same pressure as before, like being watched from too many angles at once. I slowed. That was my mistake. Because the moment I did, they were there. Not in front of me, not chasing, just there, standing ahead. The same tall, thin shapes, blocking the path I'd just chosen. I stopped dead. More behind me. Closer than before. I hadn't heard them move, hadn't seen them reposition, but they had. And now I understood. They weren't slow, they were controlled. There's a difference. My breathing picked up, fogging the air in front of my mask. The flare sputtered slightly, burning down faster now. "Think," I whispered again. Then something shifted in my memory. Not something I'd seen, something I'd felt. Earlier. The basin. The tracks. Or rather, the lack of them. And then her voice. "If you cross, they count you." I looked down at my boots, at the deep impressions I'd been leaving behind. Then back at the figures. Then at the untouched snow between us. A thought formed. Dangerous. Desperate. But it was the only thing I had. I dropped to one knee and carefully stepped backward into my own footprints. Then another step. And another, retracing exactly where I'd come from. The flare burned lower. The red light dimmed. I moved slowly, deliberately, keeping my steps aligned with the existing impressions. The figures didn't move. They didn't step forward. They didn't adjust. They just watched. The moment my foot slipped slightly off the edge of one track, the nearest figure twitched. Not a full movement, just a shift. Like something noticing. I froze, corrected my footing, stepped back into place. The figure stilled again. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay." I kept going. Step by step. Backwards. Following my own path through the snow. The flare flickered violently now, close to dying. The light stuttered across the figures. And for a split second, I saw more than just shapes. I saw outlines. Human, almost. Too long, too thin, and their heads tilted. all at the same angle, watching, measuring, counting. The flare went out. Darkness slammed back in. For a moment, I couldn't see anything. Then slowly, the ambient glow of the aurora returned, faint, but enough. I didn't stop moving, didn't break the pattern. Step, step, step. Then, my boot hit something solid. The snowmobile. I'd made it back. I turned carefully, keeping my feet within the disturbed area as much as possible, and reached for the ignition again. One press, nothing. Second press, the engine roared to life. Loud, violent, real. I didn't question it. I swung onto the seat and gunned it immediately, following the exact line of my previous tracks. Behind me, nothing. No footsteps, no pursuit. Just the sound of the engine tearing through the silence. I didn't look back, not once. Not until the faint glow of the station lights appeared on the horizon. Only then did I risk a glance. The tundra behind me was empty. Flat, less. Like nothing had ever been there at all. I crossed the station boundary at full speed and didn't slow until I was inside the perimeter. Only then did I cut the engine. The silence here was different. Contained, safe, or at least safer. The door burst open before I even made it halfway across the lot. Two of the others came out, moving fast. "Harper, what the hell happened?" one of them asked. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, helmet still on, breath coming hard, trying to process what had just happened. "Where's the kid?" the other asked. I looked at him, then at the station, then back out at the dark horizon. "There wasn't one," I said. They exchanged a glance. "Dispatch said you were responding to a call," he said carefully. "But it didn't come from you." That got their attention. We moved inside. Warm air hit me immediately, melting the frost along the edges of my gear. Normal sounds returned. Equipment humming, low conversations, the steady background noise of a working station. It felt wrong. Too normal. I pulled off my helmet and gloves, setting them down slowly. "Show me the logs," I said. They didn't argue. We went straight to the console. Dispatch records, incoming calls, system alerts. Everything from the past 6 hours. I scanned it all. Every line, every timestamp. There was nothing. No call, no coordinates, no missing person. Nothing at 2:11 a.m. Nothing at all. My stomach sank. "Maybe you misheard something," one of them suggested. "No," I said immediately. I didn't. Because I hadn't just heard it. I'd followed it. I'd seen. My eyes drifted to the floor, to my boots, still dusted with snow. But something was off. I crouched down slowly, looked closer. There were tracks on the snow, packed into the treads. Small ones, narrow, like a child's, perfectly preserved. I stared at the prints for longer than I should have. They were clear, defined, not distorted by movement or melting. Each one pressed cleanly into the snow, caught in the grooves of my boots, like they had been made seconds ago. Which meant one of two things. Either I had found a missing girl exactly where I thought I did, or something had made sure I would believe that I had. "Harper," one of the guys said, "you good?" I straightened up slowly. "Yeah," I said, though it came out thinner than I intended. "Yeah, I'm good." I wasn't, but I also knew how this would sound if I tried to explain it too fast, too raw. Out here people respect strange. They don't respect unstable. So I kept it simple. "Snowmobile stalled. Lost radio. Got turned around for a bit," I said. "Probably just interference." They nodded. That tracked. That was normal. That was believable. What I didn't say was that I had followed tracks that no longer existed, spoken to a girl no one reported missing, and been surrounded by things that didn't behave like anything I'd ever encountered before. What I didn't say was that I knew, deep down, in a place I couldn't rationalize, that whatever I had run into out there wasn't random. It had rules, and I had almost broken them. I finished the report with minimal detail: mechanical failure, environmental disorientation, no subject found, clean, contained, safe. Not sunrise yet. Just that faint shift that reminds you the night doesn't last forever. I didn't sleep. I tried. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that line again. Those shapes, that stillness, and the way they had moved without moving. Around noon, I gave up and went back to the station. Day shifts are different. Busier, louder, more grounded. You can convince yourself things make sense when there are enough people around acting like they do. I headed straight for the equipment bay. My snowmobile was already there, being worked on. "Morning," the mechanic said without looking up. "Heard you had some trouble last night." "Yeah," I replied. "Engine just died." He snorted lightly. "Did more than that." That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" He stepped back slightly, wiping his hands. "Fuel line's fine, battery's fine, ignition's fine," he said. But something tripped the entire system at once, like a full shutdown. "Electrical fault?" I asked. He shook his head. "No sign of damage, no burn, no overload," he said. "It's like it just decided to stop." That didn't make me feel better. "Can that happen?" I asked. "Not really." I nodded slowly, then glanced down. The snowmobile's treads were still packed with snow. And in that snow, more prints, small, precise, leading up onto the footrests, then stopping. "Did you see those?" I asked. He followed my gaze. "See what?" I pointed. "Those tracks, right there." He leaned in closer, squinted, then straightened. "Just snow," he said. "No," I insisted. "Look closer." "I am," he replied. "There's nothing there." I felt something cold settle in my chest again, because I could still see them. Clear as anything. One step, two, three, then nothing. Like whatever had made them had climbed on, and then ceased to exist. I didn't argue. There was no point. Instead, I stepped back. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Guess it's just snow." I left the bay after that, but I didn't go home. I went to the records room. Every station has one. Old reports, archived calls, things that aren't relevant until suddenly they are. I pulled everything I could find on unexplained incidents, equipment failures, missing persons with no reports, anything that didn't fit cleanly into a category. It took hours. Most of it was nothing. Miscommunication, weather anomalies, human error. But then I found something. A report from 8 years ago. Different officer, same region. Time of incident, 3:07 a.m. I read it twice, then a third time. He described a loss of radio, a sudden engine failure, and unidentified vertical figures observed at distance, no tracks present, movement inconsistent with terrain. My grip tightened on the page. There was more. Subject reported auditory phenomena, counting sounds, no visible source, counting. I flipped through more files. Another one, 5 years ago. Caller reported child seen alone on tundra. No missing persons match description. Tracks found then lost. Another, 3 years ago. Unit reported disorientation despite clear conditions. GPS deviation unexplainable. Time discrepancy of approximately 6 minutes. My pulse was steady now. Not calm. Focused. Because this wasn't random. It was a pattern. And patterns meant rules. I sat back in the chair, staring at the stack of reports. Every single one had something in common. Time. 3:07. Always. I checked the clock on the wall. 2:52 p.m. Hours away. But that didn't matter. Because now I knew it wasn't just a time. It was a threshold. A moment where something changed. Where something counted. The girl's voice slipped back into my memory. "They're keeping count." I stood up slowly. Because there was one more thing I hadn't checked. I went back to the main floor. To dispatch. "Hey," I said casually, "last night when I called in, what time did you first hear from me?" She pulled up the log. 2:11, she said. "You acknowledged the call. And after that?" She scrolled. "Nothing until 3:13, she replied. "You came back on, said you were returning." My chest tightened. "Nothing in between?" I asked. She shook her head. Dead air. 6 minutes. Unaccounted. I nodded slowly. "Thanks." I turned away. But I didn't leave. Not yet. Instead, I looked out the window, at the tundra beyond the station. Flat, empty, normal. And I understood something then that I hadn't fully grasped before. I hadn't escaped. I had been let go. There's a difference. That night, I stayed late, didn't take a call, didn't go out. I just sat in the operations room, watching the clock. 2:59, 3:02, 3:05. My radio sat on the desk in front of me. Silent. Still. 3:06. I held my breath without meaning to. 3:07. Click. Just once. Sharp. Clean. I didn't touch the radio. Didn't reach for it. Didn't respond. I just listened. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought I heard something underneath it. Faint. Distant. Like voices. Not speaking. Not whispering. Just counting. I didn't look outside. I didn't move. I didn't acknowledge it. Eventually, the silence returned to normal, or something close enough to it. I exhaled slowly. The clock ticked forward. 3:08. Nothing happened. But I knew better than to think that meant it was over. Because now, I understood the most important rule. It's about what you see out there. It wasn't even about what you hear. It was about what you respond to. Out on the tundra, something is always watching, always measuring, always keeping track. And if you answer when you're not supposed to, if you step where you're not meant to, if you let them count you, you don't go missing. You don't die. You just get added. So now, every night at 3:07, no matter where I am, I stop. I stay quiet. And I don't respond. Because I don't know how many times you get to ignore it before it decides to come closer.